Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be diving into a pretty fascinating claim about CNN
Okay.
and whether they aired a pre-recorded interview as live.
Hmm.
Our main source for this deep dive is a video analysis, so let's get right into it.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, the video starts with someone just casually channel surfing, right? And they notice something a little odd.
Okay.
They see Congresswoman Jackie Speier
Hmm.
being interviewed, it seems like, on both CNN and MSNBC, like at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So the video creator claims that the CNN version wasn't actually live.
Huh. I see.
So to understand this claim, we need to talk about something called lower thirds.
Right. Right. Yeah. Those are those on-screen graphics that usually show a person's name and title.
Exactly.
And in a news broadcast, if there's a live indicator on the lower third, that's usually a sign that we're looking at real-time content.
Right, and that's where this alleged discrepancy lies. So the video highlights the clock on CNN's lower third during Spear's interview, and it shows 7:07 p.m. Eastern Time. But then they show the cable provider's clock, which you can also see like while they're flipping through the channels.
Yeah.
And it says 7:07 p.m. Eastern too.
Hmm.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
The video then shows photos that were tweeted by Spear's aides during both of her interviews on CNN and MSNBC.
Interesting.
So the CNN interview photo has a timestamp of 3:25 p.m. Pacific time,
Okay.
and it was tweeted, get this, before the alleged live interview even aired.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. So the time zone difference here becomes super important.
Right.
3:25 p.m. Pacific time is 6:25 p.m. Eastern time.
Exactly.
So if the interview was truly live on CNN at 7:07 p.m. Eastern, that photo would have been tweeted like almost 40 minutes before the interview even began.
Exactly. Like, how could they tweet a photo from an interview that hasn't even happened yet?
Right. Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah. And then, to further solidify their point, the video shows a photo from the MSNBC interview that was tweeted at 4:08 p.m. Pacific time, which is 7:08 p.m. Eastern. And that lines up perfectly with when their live broadcast actually happened.
Mm.
It really is like piecing together a puzzle, you know?
Yeah. Trying to make sense of these timestamps and photos and seeing if they all fit together.
Right. And to kind of drive their point home even further, the video also compares CNN to other networks.
Oh, yeah.
And they show examples of Fox News and MSNBC very clearly labeling pre-recorded segments with recorded earlier notifications.
Right.
And they remove that live indicator, you know?
Yeah.
So even though it's not legally required to do that, there are these like industry practices in place.
Yeah. I mean, they help maintain transparency with the audience.
Right.
And they manage viewer expectations.
Mm.
So the video creator is using this comparison, right, to suggest that CNN might be intentionally misleading its audience
Right.
by not doing that.
And the video doesn't stop there. They go on to bring up a bunch of other instances where CNN has been accused of peddling fake news.
Hmm.
They talk about a lawsuit filed by a hospital CEO against CNN.
An alleged faked satellite interview where two reporters were supposedly in different locations, but it turned out they were actually in the same parking lot.
Oh, wow.
There's even a segment about the blurring of a man's Donald Trump T-shirt during a rebroadcast.
Hmm.
Jake Tapper's son calling his father fake news.
Okay.
And even Anderson Cooper's participation in recording fake news segments for the movie Batman v Superman.
Right. So it's important to point out that we're not here to actually validate or debunk any of these claims.
Right.
Our focus is on understanding that main video and the evidence presented about the Spear interview.
Exactly.
But it is interesting to see how the video creator uses these other examples, right, to build this broader narrative about CNN's credibility.
Right. So we've laid out all the key pieces of evidence that this video is presenting.
Yeah.
The conflicting timestamps.
Yeah.
The photo evidence.
Mm-hmm.
The comparisons to other networks
Yeah.
and their labeling practices.
And this is where things get really interesting, because we got to start asking ourselves.
What do we make of all this?
Yeah.
How much weight do we give to these individual pieces of evidence, and how do they influence our perception of CNN's credibility?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to be exploring as we continue our deep dive.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've laid out this intriguing puzzle of timestamps and photos and industry practices. It's like we're media detectives or something trying to uncover the truth.
Exactly. And like any good detective, we need to be super thorough,
Yeah.
right? We're dealing with a single source here, a single perspective.
Right. So how do we, as critical consumers of information, how do we navigate a situation like this? Like, where do we even begin?
Yeah, that's where the real deep dive begins, right? It's about going beyond just the surface level, and considering potential biases
Mm-hmm.
and seeking out, additional information to get a more complete understanding.
So are you saying we should be out here fact-checking everything we see and hear?
Well, I mean, that's an excellent question. While fact-checking everything might not always be feasible, it's really important to develop like a healthy skepticism,
Okay.
a discerning eye.
Okay.
Look for corroborating evidence from reputable sources.
Gotcha. So it's almost like we need a detective's toolkit, for navigating the information landscape.
I love that analogy. Think of it as honing your media literacy skills.
Okay.
Question the framing of the story, right? Pay attention to the language that's used, the visuals that are presented. Are they designed to kind of evoke a particular emotional response from you?
Right. This makes me think about those photos from Spears Aids again, right? Could
Yeah.
they have been manipulated? Could they have been like taken out of context?
That's always a possibility in the digital age, right?
Right.
Images can be, easily altered.
Yeah.
Information can be selectively presented to fit a specific narrative.
So how do we protect ourselves from that? Like, are there any tools or strategies we can use?
One helpful strategy is reverse image searching.
Yeah.
So you can upload an image into a search engine like Google Images or TinyEye, and you can see where else that image pops up online.
Mm.
This can help you determine whether or not an image has been manipulated
Okay, yeah.
or used in different contexts.
So it's like having a digital magnifying glass to examine the evidence more closely.
Exactly. And remember, context is king. Don't just focus on isolated pieces of information. Try to understand the broader context in which those pieces of information are presented.
Mm-hmm.
What's the source's overall agenda? Are they presenting a balanced perspective?
This is really making me rethink how I approach news and information. Like, I feel like I've been kind of sleepwalking through it.
That's the goal, right? It's about empowering you to be a more informed and discerning consumer of media.
Mm.
And it's not just about spotting potential fake news or something like that. It's also about understanding the nuances of media production, the choices that are made in editing and presentation.
Right. Like, there's this whole unseen world behind the scenes that's influencing what we see and how we see it.
Becoming aware of that unseen world is a key step in developing media literacy. It allows you to deconstruct the message, to look beyond the surface and understand the underlying mechanisms at play.
It's almost like learning a new language, the language of media.
That's a great way to put it. By learning the grammar and syntax of media, you become a more fluent and critical reader of the information landscape.
Okay. So coming back to this CNN video that we're talking about, how can we apply these media literacy skills to actually evaluate the claims being made? Like, what specific questions should we be asking ourselves?
Well, first, consider the source. Who created the video? What's their background?
Right.
What's their perspective? Are they known for producing reliable content?
Right.
Yeah,
that's a good point. The video creator here is Mark Dice, and he has a pretty extensive history of producing conservative political commentary.
Right. So it's important to be aware of that perspective going in. It doesn't necessarily invalidate the claims being made, but it's a factor to consider.
Right. So it's like acknowledging that everyone has a lens through which they view the world.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And understanding that lens can help us interpret the information more effectively.
Um,
It's also interesting how the video uses humor and sarcasm to engage the audience.
It definitely makes it more like entertaining to watch.
Right. That's a common technique in persuasive communication.
Okay.
Humor can be a powerful tool for connecting with viewers and making, kind of complex topics a little bit more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's important to be aware of how humor can also be used to subtly influence opinions and reinforce biases.
So it's like a double-edged sword. It can make the information more engaging, but it can also potentially cloud our judgment.
Exactly. It's all about being aware of the techniques being used and evaluating the information critically. This has been a real eye-opener for me.
I completely agree. What stands out to me is how empowering it is to learn these critical thinking skills.
Knowledge is power,
Yeah.
especially in the age of information overload, right?
Yeah.
The more you understand about how media works, the better equipped you are to navigate the complexities of the information landscape
Right.
and make informed decisions.
I couldn't agree more. So before we wrap things up, what are some like key takeaways that we can offer our listeners as they continue to kind of explore this topic?
First and foremost, always approach information with a healthy dose of skepticism. Don't just accept things at face value. Dig deeper.
Okay.
Ask questions. Seek out multiple perspectives.
It's like so easy, to get caught up in just scrolling through headlines and taking things at face value.
Oh, yeah.
But this deep dive is a good reminder to like slow down and think critically about the information we're taking in.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to challenge your own biases.
Right.
I mean, we all have them, right?
Right.
And they can subtly influence how we interpret information. Be open to considering different viewpoints, even if they, make you a little uncomfortable.
Right.
Or challenge your existing beliefs.
That's a powerful message. It's about being like intellectually humble.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Exactly. And finally, remember that media literacy is an ongoing journey. It's not something you just master overnight.
Right.
The media landscape is constantly evolving, so we need to continuously hone our critical thinking skills and adapt to those changes.
It's interesting how this video got us thinking about those industry standards. Like, it made me realize I don't always pay attention to those recorded earlier labels.
Yeah.
Do you think most people even notice those?
That's a great question. And it speaks to how much we just take for granted when we're consuming media.
Right.
We often assume that what we see is what we get, especially when it comes to live broadcasts.
Right.
But as we've seen, there's a lot happening behind the scenes that can really shape our perception of reality.
Right. It makes you wonder, like, how many times have we watched something pre-recorded and we didn't even realize it?
Yeah.
But going back to the evidence presented in this video, let's say you've gone through it all. You've scrutinized the timestamps, you've considered the source's perspective, and you've done your best to apply those media literacy skills that we talked about. What happens when, even after all that, you're still left with like conflicting information?
Yeah.
Or conflicting perspectives?
That's the heart of the issue, isn't it? We crave certainty, but the truth is often messy and complex. And in cases like this, it's important to remember that there isn't always a clear-cut answer.
So how do we, as critical thinkers, how do we navigate that gray area? It feels almost counterintuitive to accept that there might not be a definitive right answer.
It's definitely a shift in mindset. It's about embracing nuance.
Okay.
And acknowledging that multiple perspectives can coexist, even if they seem contradictory. It's about weighing the evidence,
right,
considering the context, and ultimately forming your own informed opinion based on the information that's available to you.
That feels a lot more challenging than just accepting what you see at face value. Yeah.
But I can see how it would be like ultimately more rewarding. It's about taking ownership of your understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Instead of just being a passive consumer of information.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about, empowering you to be an active participant in the information landscape.
This has been a really incredible deep dive. I feel like I've gained some valuable tools for navigating the world of news and information.
Yeah, it's like we've given you this mental toolkit, for dissecting media, for understanding the language of production and presentation. And remember, critical thinking it's a muscle that gets stronger with use.
Right.
The more you question, the more you analyze, the sharper your discernment becomes.
So before we go, I have one final thought I want to leave you with.
Okay.
Think about how this deep dive can inform your approach to information in your daily life.
Yeah.
Does it change how you scroll through social media?
How you interpret news headlines, how you engage in conversations about current events.
It's a call to action.
Yeah.
To be more conscious and engaged. Remember, we all have a role to play in shaping the information landscape.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those implications. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of media and fake news. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay informed.